My name's Doug Wotherspoon. I'm the Executive Director of Advancement at Algonquin College, and I like to say I have the best job in the world because really I get to tell the Algonquin story. Our office, of which my colleague Joanne is here with me, is responsible for recruitment, marketing, and communications, and we do a little government relations on the side. And just to give you a sense of the scope of that effort, there are more first-year students coming into Algonquin College every year than there are coming into Carleton and the University of Ottawa combined. That's the size of Algonquin College. 20,000 full-time students, most of them doing 1, 2, and sometimes 3-year diplomas. So we have to get them in and then get them out quite quickly. And that's a fairly large task when our brethren down the canal only have to bring in 2 or 3, and we have to bring in 9 or 10. So that's a fairly significant job. And the college itself is going through a fair amount of transformation. And I think I'm here really to tell you a story about Algonquin College and our quest for entrepreneurship in the hope that some of the messages may relate, because I have a feeling we have a few similar situations presenting ourselves. So just to give you a sense of who I am and why would I be talking about entrepreneurship, I consider myself to be now a corporate entrepreneur. But way back when I was 9 years old, I was a true full-fledged entrepreneur. At 9 years of age in Toronto, I got a paper route and started delivering the Globe and Mail at 6 in the morning, which for a 9-year-old is a fairly significant task. And even more important, I was still doing it at 16, which is really difficult. That paper route actually grew to about 400 papers, and I solicited my brothers to help me and then my dad. And so from the back of our station wagon, we would be off delivering newspapers every morning. That was such a lucrative job. And actually, really, I think it was the fact that my dad was a stockbroker that really made it lucrative. But anyway, it's my story, so I'm going to stick to it. That job actually founded a few of my startups, and I'll talk a little bit about that. I started 2 fraternities, one at University of Western Ontario and one at Carleton. In fact, the one at Carleton was the first fraternity at Carleton, and now there are about 9 or 8 of them at Carleton. And while that wasn't profitable from my perspective, actually just had annual dues on a regular basis, it was nonetheless where I realized that I actually like starting things. And that has continued. In fact, that continued upon my completion at Carleton when I started a magazine called Campus Life, which was distributed free of charge to students at the University of Ottawa, Carleton, and Algonquin College. In fact, I like to claim that that was my first MBA. I'm actually taking my second MBA right now at the University of Ottawa. The reason that was my first MBA is because it cost me about $20,000. My second MBA is costing me a little bit more than that. But nonetheless, it started really to form in my mind some ideas around how to go about building businesses and creating and bringing to life ideas. One you guys might know was that, well, I think it's about 16 years ago now, good Lord. I started a company called Capital Trolley Tours. In fact, if it were not for this museum, the one that we're standing here in today, being an early advertiser, and if anybody remembers Leanne Akehurst from the museum, their commitment to us and providing us advertising actually really ensured that we could actually run the route. So you paid, or the museum paid, for us to have a stop out at the Aviation Museum. We could not make it all the way out to the Science and Tech Museum, I'm afraid. And over time, in the 12 years that I ran that business and before we sold it to Laidlaw for a good sum of money, we actually had 100 people working for us. We had expanded and now had 20 vehicles because we took over the double-decker business, got into the airport shuttle business and the destination management company. And by the time it was finished, we were averaging around $2 million of sales on an annual basis. So fairly significant. And I learned a huge amount there from 27 through till 39 years of age. More recently, I took a leave of absence from Carleton University and decided that I really wanted to kind of start another firm. And this time with a good friend of mine, Natalie Levine, we started a company called EcoVerde, now called EcoVox because of copyright infringement rules. And we did sustainability consulting. And in fact, that took me to my 3rd position now at Algonquin College. And like I like to say, I am a corporate entrepreneur. The reason I'm here today is really to tell you that I believe, and we believe at the college, that we are on the cusp of a new era of corporate entrepreneurship. That the roots of entrepreneurism are so important to institutions and organizations today because of the challenges we're facing. And I'm going to show you a couple of them that we're facing at the college. See if you might relate to a few of them. So the first one is we're a government-funded agency, right? We get 50%, used to be 100%, it's now down to 49.9% of our funding from the taxpayers of Ontario. And the rest comes from revenues that we make through selling textbooks and putting people up in residence and selling them food, and from tuition fees. And the challenge with the financial situation these days, not just here in Canada, but across the world, is that in fact there's less and less money. Compounding that, there is this challenge of demography. The shifting demographics of the country mean that for the group that is our primary audience, the 17 to 29-year-olds, which have been growing at approximately 1% per year for the last 15 years, are about to go into a state of decline. Significant. On top of that, we're getting older. The demography of the country means that more and more revenues are going to have to be put into healthcare, which means that there's going to be less for us as an institution. And that's putting a squeeze on our financial situation. The other challenge is that our learners are arriving on our doors with an incredibly different set of needs. Anybody walk into a kindergarten class today will see a bevy of tablets, of iPads, of podcasting, even of twittering their parents from the classroom. And that's just going to pick up speed. 5 days ago in India, they launched a $20 tablet that has the same power as most of your desktop computers. $20. That means that pretty well anywhere in the world, you're going to have access, subject to you having internet connection, to online education and resources. That is a game changer for our industry. On top of that, you have this move to cloud computing, which makes it easy for almost any organization to start up. And you have, pushing the wrong button again, a shift in the way in which education is being delivered. So anybody know Coursera? These are what are called, a few of you. These are called massive open online courses. And they are free. Free really disrupts your business model. Don't know if anybody knows that. And just to put a real fine point on the population challenges that we're going to be facing at the college over the next number of years. So you can see this kind of curve that shows from 1991 on the far left-hand side and 2030 on the far right-hand side, a real kind of ride that we're about to go on. And we've been benefiting from that uphill climb, but this is where we are now. So imagine that, 0.5% of your audience is no longer going to be around for the next 12 years. That's a significant decline when all you've had is growth for the last number of years. You guys might actually, this might resonate with you because there's a little bit of divergence happening from the financial situation. I think it's around $40 billion. In 2009, revenue started to take a dip, but expenses, because of our commitment to infrastructure and really seeding our economies, started to create that dip. Anybody believe that it's going to get any better over the next few years? At the college, we don't. We don't see a magic bullet. I wish we did. It would be great. So we really have to think about doing things differently. You know, the reality is it's not just about economics, although that's a significant one. Our customers are changing. The competitive landscape is changing with Coursera and other MOOCs. A new Canadian Museum of History getting $25 million. That's a competitive factor. But on top of that, the government is requiring us to actually be more accountable. And the forms that we have to fill out, we have to wait 2 years to get approval to launch a new degree at the college. 2 years. So not only is the regulation increasing, but we're actually not allowed to bring product to market quickly. It It's an interesting reality. So those are some of our challenges. And the reality is that the larger the company, the more its focus shifts from improving itself to avoiding failure. That risk tolerance starts to decline the larger and larger you get. I suspect it might be the same here. And we have to really throw the shackles off of that. So the reality for us is that this just means that the status quo is no longer really an option, right? Not terribly challenging for everybody to figure out. And so we believe at the college that our success lay rooted in the people that work there. If we can create an entrepreneurial culture, and I applaud the museum and the corporation for really being ahead of the game when it comes to this. You're having these conversations, and I can tell you most large-scale organizations are not. And kudos to the committee. You're really in a good position. So here's our, I'm an academic, so I got to throw an academic. And here's our equation of entrepreneurship, which is that it is really a combination of creativity and a limiting of the risk, the failure, the risk-taking, increasing risk-taking and improving creativity. So what are the opportunities from the entrepreneurship side, and why are we so thrilled about it? I'll give you a few examples. First, entrepreneurs tend to see a glass half full. I love the cautiously optimistic. That's a real entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs really have a just do it attitude, right? That's what's made them successful. They take calculated risks. As an entrepreneur, I can tell you, when I started my company and had to go to my friends and family to raise $110,000, that's how much it cost me to buy my first trolley. And actually, I had somebody finance it, so it was 3 trolleys for $110,000. My parents and my family members took a degree of risk, but didn't want it to be on a whim. So it's not an uncalculated risk, it's a calculated risk. And the simple fact is that from the beginning of time, people, entrepreneurs, have innovated. Anybody watched Henry Ford's documentary last night will know that Henry Ford did more in one day for increasing the living wage of his workers by moving from about 50 cents a day, dollar a day, to committing $5 a day plus profit taking. In one stroke of the pen, he was able to bring an increase in living wages. He got a little demented later on in life, so try to forget that part. But nonetheless, when he started, $5. In fact, all the other car companies believed it was the ruin of capitalism, giving profits and increasing wages. But there are, and I apologize if this is a little messed up. It looks really good on my deck, but here's my definition of entrepreneurship. It is the pursuit of opportunity without regard to resources currently controlled. At the root of it is a sense of resourcefulness. We hear more than anything when people ask why they could not get something done, it was because I didn't have enough time, I didn't have enough knowledge, I didn't have the support of my manager, I didn't have the resources I need. Entrepreneurs get around those challenges. And that's the great opportunity for us if we can create a commitment to resourcefulness. But there are some challenges, some hurdles, so to speak. The first one is that entrepreneurs have a bad name. Gordon Gekko gave it to everybody. So, good Lord, they keep making more movies with them in it, so it just prolongs the agony. The other one is that most organizations, especially large ones as mentioned, are not risk takers. They like to do things in a very organized way. On August 28, 1963, Martin Luther King stood on the Washington Mall and gave an I have a dream speech, not an I have a plan speech. A fairly significant moment. The other one is that we, from about kindergarten on, start to think of creativity as a bad thing, right? People dress differently. They might approach things differently. And at the college, we're trying to figure out how we turn our classrooms back into kindergarten classes by flipping the classroom. In those classrooms, people proudly display their work. It does not matter whether or not somebody rules it to be good or bad. It's up on the wall with the same level of prominence as everybody else in that classroom. We don't work kind of in cubicles, we work as teams across from each other. There's a sense of energy in that kindergarten classroom. And our challenge at the college is to try and bring that sense of creativity back into the workforce. Finally, the one we hear the most of, and I think this is an accurate statement, and I'm going to give you some ideas on how to improve it. And that is that a great idea, if raised, equals more work. Anybody here have that? Yeah. So those are the challenges that we are facing at the college. And this tension between the future and the present and the past is really quite challenging, and just something we need to talk about openly and be okay with people being in discomfort. In fact, embracing the fact that they are letting you know that it is a challenge for them. So here are the 4 things that we're doing at the college. I don't know enough about your business to even come close to suggesting that this is what you should do here, but I just want to give you a sense of what we're doing. And they're fairly basic. The first one is that we're trying to figure out how to give more autonomy to employees. We want to make sure that people understand that they need to be masters of their skills. We want to create rewards and incentives. That's challenging in a collective agreement world where everything is equal, right? And finally, and probably most importantly, everybody needs to have a shared purpose. So here's how we have done it. The first one, I'm going to deal with 2 of them, and that's autonomy and purpose. So the first one is, what are you going to stop doing? That last time I checked, there are only 24 hours in the day. And really, everybody has a full plate. I can't imagine that that is not the same here. So what we did at the college was we took 2 years to actually figure out what we would stop doing. We spent a huge amount of effort. The report, I think, is about 70 some odd pages, mandated by our board, which is really quite visionary. And we came up with 20 programs that we would stop offering. It made the front page of the Citizen and CBC Radio because guess what? The people that were having their programs stopped didn't like that, right? But it was quite important, and because of our engaged process, we actually got out of 9 programs and reimagined 11. Now, from a group of 150, that's not a huge number, but it gets us closer to figuring out what we were going to stop doing. Because what we want to try and do is give 20% of our employees' time back to them to spend on projects that they want, that they believe are important, not what the corporation or their managers believe. It's actually been fairly successful at Google. It's the way they manage. So if you arrive at Google, you get 20% of your time unbooked. And we're trying to test whether or not that will deliver us some impact. The other one is on the purpose side. And as a college, you would think we would have had this right, but it took a little tweaking. Because really, we come to work for the paycheck and for safety and security, but really to motivate, you need a purpose, a shared sense of purpose. Most organizations really, and most employees know what they do. I can't imagine there's anybody in this room that does not know exactly what they have to do when they get back to the office. A few, and most probably, but a few have an understanding of how they do it. And by how, I mean, what's your unique selling proposition? What makes you different? What makes Algonquin different from a Humber or a Carleton or La Cité or the University of Ottawa? We're in a competitive business. Why would somebody come to us over somebody somewhere else? And then the last one, probably the one that's most difficult, is the why. Why do we as an institution exist? And we had to actually spend a fair amount of time talking about that. Most people kind of do their marketing from the outside in. We have great features and benefits, our class sizes are smaller, it costs less. The reality is that most people buy from you. You want people to buy because of the why, not because of the what. It's the only reason that Starbucks makes any sense. So here's our vision, and I apologize, it's off of my phone, but this was our old vision. Algonquin College will be the leading Canadian college delivering career-focused quality education supported by client-centered service and technology. Now that makes you just want to jump up and run, doesn't it? So that's not a terribly compelling why. So here, let me tell you where we are. We spent an entire year strategic thinking about it and rebranding the college. So why are we in the business? We are here to transform lives. That's what we do. We transform lives, and we transform lives from a socioeconomic group that has probably the worst chance of success. At Algonquin, the average household income of a full-time student for 50% of our students is under $20,000. When I was at Carleton doing the same job, we didn't start counting till $60,000. And yet, as a college, we're funded the least amount. It should be flipped, but anyway, that's a soapbox, so I won't go there. But we transform lives. How do we do that? By ensuring that the people that we let in, we get them through to the convocation stage. We need to be, as an organization, committing to doing everything in our power to ensure that they graduate. But it doesn't end there. Graduation isn't the kind of the high hill. It's about a job. Everybody that comes to Algonquin comes, for the majority of those folks, come because they want to start a career. They want to continue their career. They want to land a job. So as an institution, we used to be focused on graduation and retention rates, not on employment rates. And that's the shift for the college. So that's the why. It's to transform lives and to find people jobs. Why? Because as a society, we will be better off if we have full employment. We will be better off, regardless of whether or not you have a mental or a physical disability, having a job. Does not matter what your interests are. We want to make sure that you are living your dream and having a positive impact on our community and the communities we serve. And how do we do that? By connecting them to career, to technology, to people, and to community. I'll give you a small example of how we think we're going to be doing that. This is the what we do, so to speak. We do it by investing in career services so that we help our students find the job, and not putting career services on the 5th floor of an office building, but on the ground floor, so that when you come into the building, you know we are committed to your prospects at the end of the day. We do it by providing and embedding work experience. Within the next few years, 100% of our full-time students will be guaranteed a work experience, because we believe that hands-on, experiential learning is the best form, not one of, the best form of learning. Learning by doing means you really learn, and we can show you all the studies for that. And I'll just show you an example of how, when you live these ideals, what kind of can come of it. This is Rick Mercer, but behind Rick is Lisa Roots, a professor in our Police Foundations program, and she has been a professor at the college for 9 months. She has a cause, and that's called Spread the Net. And because we support community outreach, we decided that we would support her. So what did we do? Well, we've been raising money. We want to be the #1 college in terms of fundraising for Spread the Net, and put a goal of $15,000, which is a significant. We haven't really done too much of this at the college because people kind of come and go quite quickly. We had 3 teams running across the organization for 12 hours, from 7 in the morning to 7 in the evening. And they raised $5,000 through the buckets. It engaged staff and faculty and students, and there's not a single person at the college, I suspect, that on that day did not know that we as an institution were helping to raise money. One person with a commitment to community outreach and the resources required. Now, she didn't have a budget for this. She didn't have any contacts at the organization because she's only been there 9 months, right? She had no idea who to call, so who she called was the president, and he got involved, and we all got involved. Everybody that walked Every member of our senior leadership team walked that day with those students. And I am proud to say, although we haven't announced it on campus, that we are now at the $17,000 mark in terms of fundraising, and we expect Rick Mercer to be here later in March. So here are 5 places to start, or these are the 5 that we are focused on. First, find your why. All right, what is it that makes you as an organization? And I suspect you already have that because I'm going to show you some slides in a sec. Second, and most importantly probably, decide what you're going to stop doing. And this specifically to managers, because you have the power more than anybody else to figure out what it is that you're going to stop doing. Host idea sessions. Bring back that creativity. Put it into the workplace. And then ultimately fund those ideas, because there's nothing worse than great ideas left abandoned. Hire to your why, not your what. If you look at Lisa's experience, if you went back through her resume, you can tell that she was community engaged. It's not something we tried to train into her once she got to the college, although we do that. It was something she brought with it, and we just embraced it. And finally, celebrate and reward. So what is the Entrepreneur of the Year look like at your organization? I don't think I'm telling anything that you don't already know. I guess it's really trying to get a degree of excitement about the opportunities that are presented to you from the Entrepreneurship Committee and your senior leadership. But here's the reality, Charlie Chaplin kind of said it best, is that no matter the technological improvements, if they don't have an impact in the human side of what we do, they're largely meaningless. So we can introduce all the technology and all the innovation, but unless we're having an impact to the people that we serve, it's not as important. And I think you guys already get this. I was walking through the institution, so people know Monsieur Bombardier, and you have it on display. It almost looks identical, so might even be this one. But here was his quote. I want you to know once and for all that my greatest ambition has always been, and still is, to improve your standard of living and that of all the employees. This is about you as much as it is about everybody you serve, and to work for the progress of our village. I don't know, I have not read his biography, I'm sure it's thrilling, but I suspect that why was well known. And that's why people enjoyed working for him. You already get this because I've seen it plastered up. I took this picture a couple days ago, and it reads, innovation begins with people who have knowledge, imagination, and determination. But it takes technical, intellectual, and financial support to turn good intentions into great inventions. The sparks of innovation can fly when the right mix of government, business, and individual initiatives in one place, like Ottawa's Silicon Valley or the Canadian Science Technologies Museum Corporation. Doesn't flow as well, but it's still, you get the point. Right? You get that. You're surrounded by innovation on a daily basis. How blessed are you? And finally, I'll leave you with this thought, which is never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Margaret Mead. Thank you very much, everybody.